from this painful experience I've gone through, I'm getting a deeper understanding of the foundational piece around relating and how to speak for these parts, not as the parts. If we can learn this and those listening really can feel what we're saying, like this is a game changer.
Yeah.
This gives responsibility back here
Yes.
and doesn't, for example, my fearful avoidant part, can't take over and cause so much havoc.
Yes. So just to underline what you said, it's really disarming when you're in a triggered situation with your partner and I say the drill sergeant rather than Simon. You know, you can speak to the partner, not to the person. When triggers come up in relationships, you've now got a tool to be able to say, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
What does this part need? It's Gareth, and just before we jump into today's episode, I want to share a brand new digital training that we've just released called the Magnetic Masculine Masterclass, Relationship Fundamentals for Men. This is a 3-part video training that will help you build self-led and powerful relationships. If you're tired of repeating the same patterns, attracting the same types of pain and the same types of partners, or you're tired of feeling anxious in your own relationships, this will change how you see yourself and how you show up in your connections. In video 1, you will confront the pain of the past and see how your past connections are quietly sabotaging your current relationships. When you clean up and integrate your past, you stop recreating it and start leading in your relationship. In video 2, you will identify where you give your power away and learn how to reclaim it. No more leaking energy, no more shrinking, just standing as the grounded man that you're meant to be, leading in your connections. And then in video 3, we bring it all together with a clear path forward so that you can build relationships that are grounded in strength, depth, and self-leadership, and show how you can get support on your journey to creating the relationships that you truly want. This is about becoming a man who leads with presence, owns his energy, and creates connections from a place of power and not from anxiousness and fear. So whether you feel like a roommate in your marriage or your current relationship, maybe you've just been through some heartbreak and you're tired of feeling like you're stuck in a loop, or maybe you want to call in the partnership that you want but feel like you need some tools to support you, the Magnetic Masculine Masterclass is exactly what you need. I'll link up a link to this training in the show notes below. And now, on to today's episode with Simon Paul Sutton. I am here with Simon Paul Sutton at my house in the garden route. Woo! And we've basically had an ongoing podcast for the last 24 hours. And we've said multiple times that we wish we'd been recording this because we've shared so much good stuff. And so, yeah, my desire is to record this conversation and to share some of the magic that we've unfolded in the last 24 hours and create an opportunity for you to share with the wider world the work that you're doing in the world, and to touch on some of the stuff that you've covered in your book and the work that you're doing. And so, yeah, maybe just kick off with letting the world know who you are. Like, what's a little bio? What's your mission that you feel called to bring to the world?
Whenever I hear the words, who am I, it reminds me of the India mystic, who am I? And that exercise, and I'm sure you've done it, where somebody keeps asking you who you are.
Who's in?
Yeah, like, who are you, who are you, who are you?
Yes.
And it always comes back to me to a point of not being able to answer that question, but for the play of the 3D world.
Yes. He's nobody, we're all nobody.
We're all nobody,
the
but
self is an illusion.
I think what's drawn you and I together is the passion to be, or at least my passion is to offer what I feel is possible when it comes to awakening, if that word's been a bit like violated now out in the world. Everyone's awakening this, awakening that, conscious this, conscious that, but what is it to be a new human being on this planet? That's really what drives me. I often think of this this card that I've always pulled called the Bodhisattva. It's like there's a part in me that knows that everybody can't experience the truth, and I can't experience the truth, but I will devote my life to the very potential of that. So it's definitely I'm interested in the naked truth. I'm just interested in the raw truth of this moment, the vulnerability of this moment, the realness of this moment. And so much of my life was built on the foundation of lies and lying and telling lies and being a thief and a criminal and a cheat. And life has that way of, as you know, penduluming, if that's even a word. Penduluming. A pendulum. It's not even a word for penduluming. So anyway,
the act of the pendulum moving from one side to the other.
One side to the other, and so the last, let's say, definitely since I was 30, I'm now 49 this year. So the last 19 years have really been following a question of who am I if I never tell a lie again? And that's really has been a kind of, a driving force underneath, Where am I lying? And then, if I don't tell lies, how would my life unfold? And that took me on a whole journey to sitting on this sofa with you on the garden room.
We touched this yesterday, and it's been such an important thread for me. I read, Sam Harris?
Yes.
I read his book called Lying, and it's a really small book. And when I read that book, something switched on for me, because I recognized in that book that there's places in my life where I was telling white lies to try and protect the other person, or to try and not cause conflict. And he points out just how harmful that can be. And I had the same awakening of like, oh my God, some part of me has been trying to caretake the other people in my life, typically in relationship, and not be completely honest with my truth because I thought that it might offend them or hurt them or something. And my wound has really been around the people pleaser, which we've spoken about, to please everybody else. And I noticed that I received the exact medicine that I needed from a lover who we connected in Thailand, and we had this idea that we were going to be on a long journey together. And I don't think she was in for a long journey. She was in for a holiday romance. And when we went our separate ways, with the view that we were going to meet up later at some point in the future, she ghosted me and just basically left. And I noticed that I was like, I think she knew all along, but didn't tell me. And I could tell that I had done similar stuff in my past relationships, because I thought, I don't want to hurt her feelings, so I won't be honest with her.
Yes.
And then I sort of just withdrew energetically, or distanced myself, or closed my heart or something, as a way to be able to make it easier, because I didn't like conflict. And I suddenly had a real reference point for where that dishonesty had actually taken me out of my power. I couldn't make a choice here. It was against me. And I was like, such an important journey. And I've also said the same thing from that point. It's radical honesty for me in my connections, And I think that starts with me being honest with myself first. Yeah. So I think the question is, what has shifted when you chose not to tell another lie again?
Well, maybe you will know this, and I'm glad for the reference of that little book. I'm always interested in more stories and things around lying. But as easy as it sounds, I realized it wasn't easy. And I realized that I was telling a hell of a lot more white lies, as you so described. And catapult just to now, because we can only talk about now. And this podcast is also about relationships, but I think relationships is the perfect mirror to see whether you're lying or not. And I feel that we all know whether we're lying or not. We know inside. Yeah. And that's what I kind of learned, that I know if I'm lying. I lay in bed, I'm in the shower on my own, I'm walking on my own, I'm with myself 24/7. I know what thoughts are going around, I know what are being repeated, and I know how I just showed up with you, with the person next to, I know whether I was, and it doesn't mean, I always mention that my brother said this, living transparently or radically honestly, doesn't mean that I just blurt my truth out on you all the time and tell you what I think about you. And yes. My brother used to always say, transparency is not brutality. Yes. Yes. So it's not like, I speak my truth. By the way, you're an asshole, or like, by the way, there's a way of owning it yourself, yes, and knowing that you are holding something back and speaking from you are holding back,
right. Yes.
So, or for example, if there was something in you that I noticed, it's like, hey, I noticed when you said that a moment ago, my stomach cramped up and there was this kind of uncertainty. Or sometimes noticing later where I come back to you and say, you know what, Gareth, how I responded to you earlier is not how I really wanted to respond to you. I actually was tired and wanted to go to sleep, but I told you I'd stay up, and then I stayed up and I wasn't present with you. For example,
Yes.
that's a complete,
Yes.
made up story. But
Yes.
that piece of we don't always know in the moment, sometimes these automatic white lies or kind of slightly unclear situations happen, and we don't know that they're a lie.
Right.
And we wouldn't say that, oh, you're a liar.
Yes.
Your boundary wasn't clear and you stepped,
Yes.
But at the same time, they are incongruencies, and incongruencies constantly lead to a foundation of, inconsistency, incongruence, not showing up, not being clear on your boundaries, etc., etc. So this is where I look at it for myself now, and within myself, and am I being really clear? Like, for example, somebody asks you just to go for a walk, and taking a moment to check in. Do I want to go for a walk? Yeah.
Yes.
Does it feel like the highest joy for me right now to go for a walk?
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other piece, in my last relationship, I realized I do morning pages. You know what they are, right? Morning pages is this stream of consciousness journaling. And, sometimes it's just a load of nonsense and noise. It's multiple parts all talking at once. But at the same time, everything needs voice. And so I always say to myself, how real and raw can I be? Can I share the inner realms, basically, of what's really going on inside me? Can I share that with you and in my relationships, and reveal that part of myself, which doesn't mean that it's all true, but that's what's going on for me.
Yes.
And I noticed a few times in my previous relationship where I did speak my truth, I did share transparently, but I knew it was causing rupture. And that was the painful part, is that when I speak my truth and have spoken my truth, it's often caused rupture.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it, just to give you to see.
So how do you hold that? So you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
You're understanding the importance of bringing your authentic truth, because withholding it creates energy leaks and an unstable foundation, self-betrayal, the part of you that's not in your truth in every moment. And I love the part where you said, you don't always know, but you can go back and say, you know what, last night I wasn't present and this is it, So there's something about owning that.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you just never cause rupture?
No,
or
no,
do you
no,
never
no.
speak your truth? Like, how do you balance those two pieces?
No. I mean, the old saying, truth will set us free, I know it's a cliche, but the truth has to be out.
Right.
And the rupture, I don't think the rupture is a problem in relationship if we know how to repair.
Right.
My challenge definitely, and what I'm learning more now, and I know it's something you're passionate about, is how to repair better.
Right. Yeah.
And also I'm doing my best to practice how to deliver my truth.
Yes.
Which doesn't come at a place of necessarily scaring my partner or making her feel, or them feel, but I can't change how they're going to feel, but at least laying it down like, this is what's alive for me. This is my piece,
Yes.
And coming from that place of self-led relating and sovereignty, and then expressing from that space, basically. But referencing my last relationship where, when I, let's say, a little bit, out of my own integrity, is that, you know this anyway, but just to bring it in for the conversation, there was parts in me that I was pushing down, exiling, and for maybe people listening, if they don't understand parts work, but like working with multiple parts in a framework, right?
Inside yourself.
Right. And seeing that there were blind spots happening for me where I'd pushed certain parts into exile, into, shutting them down, and functioning from parts that were wanting what they were saying they wanted, but were not congruent with the actions matching the words, because the ones that I'd pushed down were taking over the system, and then I was checking out. I was falling into, fearful avoidant. I was falling into, incongruency with my words matching my actions, falling into actions of lack and scarcity and comfort of patterns in the safety mechanism. And I wasn't fully aware that that was happening. So that was creating, from an outside perspective, and maybe even my ex-partner would say, oh, you're just a liar. That's a lying. You're not true to your word. You're not integral. You're not, So that then can come at you. And that's very painful when you know that you are doing your best to be, but at the same time, because you're not clear myself, because I'm not clear myself, I become incongruent.
So what wasn't clear?
for me, wasn't clear on what I really wanted and how to communicate that.
Right.
And then also to set the parameters of clarity about who I am. And you pulled this up yesterday, but the parts in me that wanted to have voice doesn't mean that they need to create some different reality, but they need to be brought into the relationship. Those parts need to be welcomed in, whether that be the part that is, or just all parts. And I don't need to name them all, But you voiced one yesterday, which was amazing, which you uncovered the seductress in me, right? That energy of the seductress that wants to seduce, but from an authentic place, that seductress is welcome. From a shadow, leaky place, that seductress becomes chaos, right?
Yes.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, very much.
I mean, you can piggy on that because I know you uncovered that as a piece to give me awareness on.
Yeah.
And then that seductress in the shadows looking outside of its relationship in itself to get gratification and control and to be seen and to be acknowledged, which is then going against the very fabric of a more authentic relating.
Yeah. So good, dude. I want to maybe just drop in a slightly higher viewpoint of what parts work is.
Please, I'd love that.
For those who don't know. So basically the sense that you've been working with in parts work and the tool that I work with, I call it the inner kingdom, and it's a recognition that a kingdom has space for all of the parts. In a healthy kingdom, everybody is welcome, including the gangster, including the seductress and the prostitute and the priest and the joker and the kids and the mom and dad and the prince and the warrior, and all of these parts have a place to play in the kingdom.
Yes.
And how it works in the psyche is the recognition that at a young age, certain things happen in our lives and we develop a specific strategy with one of these parts. For me, and the reason I saw it in you is because I also have the seductress. And then we recognize what's showing up in our lives, healthy or unhealthy, and recognize that it's not actually Simon that's doing these things. It's a part of you that's running a specific strategy. And then you get into a relationship and one part of you is like, I'm ready for partnership and I want to be a husband or whatever that narrative is. But there might be a part of you who's the adventurer who wants freedom, who never wants to be tied down by a relationship. And this part believes that marriage equals no more freedom. Or to the seductress that believes that connecting with multiple people equals freedom. And a monogamous connection might be the very opposite of that. And if you just say, I'm not listening to that part, eventually it's the same in the analogy that I used yesterday, as you put that part outside the kingdom and it can stay there for a while, but that eventually means death and it'll eventually knock on the kingdom doors and make such a noise. And that's where it starts to come out sideways, when you put any of these parts in the shadow. And when I say put them in the shadow, and what you were touching there is it's like where we don't accept them, we judge them to be bad or as not acceptable, or we have shame about those parts. Yeah. And it's not about always running with the seductress. It's about recognizing where I do have that part that can seduce. That's been true for me. And that I don't always have to use it but when I pretend that it's not there, it's the same as taking a person and just pretending that they're not there and putting them outside the kingdom, and they eventually start to go fucking mad. And then you can't understand why you can't show up for your connection, because one part is like, fuck, this is not what we do. And then the way through, what we touched yesterday is like, how has this part actually served me?
Yes.
How has the seductress really supported me? Because at some level, the seductress has supported Gareth to be seen in the world and feel better about myself when I felt empty by connecting, in my case, with women multiple times in my life. I felt uncomfortable, use the seductress, manifest in, I feel okay. And then I get to a place where I'm like, actually, that's not how I want to be in the world, because I wasn't always congruent with my truth. I was just continually, and then some of that behavior came from shame.
Yes.
And so I pushed the seductress aside, but the more I push it to the side, I say that when you put the shadow to the side, it goes downstairs and starts lifting weights. It gets stronger and stronger if you push it down.
Yes.
And this is the same with addiction.
Yeah.
The difference between me smoking cannabis in a healthy way and me smoking cannabis where it's ruling me is shame.
Yeah.
When I feel shameful about it, I'm putting it down there, I don't want to look at it, and what you resist persists, and it then gets stronger and stronger.
Yes.
My intimate life and my sex life now is completely in the light because I don't have any shame around it, because I've done this work around this particular piece. And I have a beautiful sex life, and it doesn't completely pull me because it's no longer in the shadow, and getting rid of the shame is the piece. But it required me recognizing the part of me that did use the seductress in an unhealthy way at times to be able to meet an empty part of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add or just say yes to all of that, and then that piece of which you kind of touched on. But every part, protector part, whatever you want to call it, is exactly that. They're trying to protect us. So when we can see that, even if it seems crazy, it's like, how is that behavior protecting me? But when we follow the thread and realize, oh, it is,
Yes.
and we welcome it in,
Yes.
right? There's that integration, right, into that more self energy. And you said something lovely last night. You showed me all these pictures of how you've put visuals to your parts,
Yes.
which I thought was really a very powerful process, which I haven't done clearly. And you name them,
Yes.
which is also beautiful. And then in that book I was telling you about You Are the One You're Waiting For, if I come into a relationship with you and you say, hey, yes, I'm wanting to be in my self-energy most of the time. I'm the one in charge of my system, and
Yes.
I have a number of parts in me and protector parts in me that
Yes.
have showed their heads, do pop up, they are with me,
Yes.
and these are them.
Yes.
And you might see them sometimes. They might pop out. They
Yes.
might come out uncontrollably. They might come out unhealthily sometimes.
Yes.
But you already get to know these parts. Then when it comes,
Yes.
and you're talking as the part in that moment, me as your partner goes, is that your drill sergeant?
Yes.
Because that seemed a little bit forceful the way you spoke. And then
Yes.
you're like,
Yes.
actually that is good. Thank you for that. Yes, sorry,
Yes.
I got a bit military there, didn't I?
Yes.
Sorry, let me check in. You know what? I was feeling rushed and a bit scared.
Yes.
I noticed I got a bit anxious. You know
Yes.
what? I didn't do my practice this morning. Sorry about that, love.
Yes.
And then it's like, I get goosebumps saying that, because it's like, then all of a sudden, as I'm seeing it now, and would have been amazing in all my previous relationships, but anyway, here we
Yes.
are. Like, when now I'm getting this, like, from this painful experience I've gone through, I'm getting a deeper understanding of the foundational piece around relating and how to communicate from these, to speak for these parts, not as the parts. So I just want to throw that in that you said last night, because that we both said, but that's a vital piece. And when I know you're embodied in this and you love it and you're passionate like me with it, but if we can learn this and those listening really can feel what we're saying, like, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
This gives responsibility back here,
Yes.
and doesn't, for example, my fearful avoidant part that can't take over and cause so much havoc.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. For example, I'm just
Yes.
naming that one part, but
Yeah. So just to underline what you said, it's really disarming when you're in a triggered situation with your partner and I say the drill sergeant rather than Simon. You can speak to the part and not to the person, and it's like, oh, okay, yes, we can see these parts. And it really is navigating the tricky landscape of when triggers come up in relationships.
Yes.
You've now got a tool to be able to say, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
What does this part need?
Yeah.
And that's a really, really magical tool. And this is why we're sharing this content, because relationships are one of the things that make life the most meaningful. And we have no tools to understand what our wounds are.
No.
We live in nuclear families that have created a whole another dynamic around relationships.
Exactly.
So we're trying to figure it out on our own. And all of us, men, mostly men listening to this conversation, but women as well, are well-intentioned. They want to have healthy relationships, but don't know how to do it. And this has been true for me until the last decade, when I started to just self-reflect and be like, my relationships and my sex life have been a bit of a minefield. Like, it's been messy. It hasn't always been easy. It hasn't always been graceful. There's been lots of explosion. And I felt ill-prepared to be able to show up for these things that are so meaningful. And then you find these various maps, and the inner kingdom tool, the parts work that we're talking about now, has been such a beautiful piece. And like you said, I wish that we learned this stuff in school, because it's like, this would be an amazing framework to be able to use to connect with others more consciously by recognizing I have all of these parts in myself and which are the ones that are most predominant.
yeah.
Hey, FSB crew, a quick message to say 97% of you who watch or consume this podcast are not subscribed. Subscribing to the show really supports us to be able to grow and reach more people, as well as include and improve the quality and caliber of guests that we have on this show. Our goal is to get this number down to 70%. And so if you have ever received any value from the content and conversations on this podcast, please consider subscribing. It really supports us and the work that we're doing. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, it could be a good segue into what you said today. I know we're kind of recapturing some of our beautiful conversations. Because what you're talking about is, we often say, don't we, when we have an insight or profound, it's like, if we knew that back then, it would be different. There's a part of me that has learned a lot from my own mistakes, let's say, through my own trial and tribulations, right? Nevertheless, there's that old saying, isn't there, that, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but if we can have foresight from insight, right? If we can have foresight from insight, then we don't have to replicate the same shit over and over again, right?
Yes.
So hindsight's cool, but how many times do we need hindsight until we're going to change our behavior?
Can you take the hindsight and make it insight?
Right, exactly. Yes. So it's like, take the hindsight, make it insight. Then now with the insight, I've got foresight, right? So I can see like, okay. So I think where you and I are at is like, that's what we're wanting to offer. When you said, what are we passionate about? How can we give, like, okay, you might still make some mistakes. You might go this way and do that. That's fine. Yes. That's your story, and you're going to learn as you go. But imagine if we could just have a little bit more awareness around these pieces, especially with relationship. And maybe if you agree with me, but that's a segue into how you so beautifully articulated why we're in this mess in the first. Hey, why are we in this mess in the first place? But with the school, the way you describe the school system, and then the families, and then the parents, and how maybe I just said this one piece. When I looked at some of my relationships and I showed up the way I did, which kind of is another version of how my fathers and my stepfathers showed up towards my mum, which was mostly, misogynistic, dismissive, passive aggressive, avoidant, lack of presence, cheating, So when I've seen that as my blueprint, and then I grew up in an environment with loads of boys who just look at women as sex objects, massive objectifying, women are just a tool for sex, right? So having that as a foundational piece in me, and then coming out of that and getting a realizing that, and then wanting to work on that and doing the work, doing the best, all the practices that we could list, and then coming into relationship and then getting triggered and then acting a little bit like those behaviors is fucking a nightmare, excuse my French. But of course, hoping that one, I'm not damaging as much as has been, and then I'm catching myself and going, let me repair that. Let me look at that. Let me take responsibility and change that behavior. That's the role, I believe, of us as men.
Yes.
Like, we have to rewrite the blueprint through our behavior.
Yes.
And that's saying no here and yes there, and holding each other accountable lovingly and saying, hey, brother, is that how you wanted to act? Is that how you wanted to show up? And then with our relationships, coming in and creating as better foundation as we can to say, I also want to be mirrored, Not just I'm the superior one, I'm the man coming in thinking I know, because I don't know about you, but we haven't got many good examples of how men are in relationship, right? Whether that's same-sex relating or what, that kind of, a lot of that, let's just talk about masculine and feminine, but has been in the shadow and has been in the, let's call it unintegrated or unembodied or immature. So, and I think sometimes, last piece on this, even with our beloved sisters out there, we can be allies in this, because
with them in relationship.
Yeah, all of us, we're allies in this.
Right.
Like you said, you come into a recent relationship and you're like, we're in this for transformation. We're in this to rewrite the blueprint.
Right.
That's the work I want to start seeing more of, rather than, oh, he fucked up again. Look, there's another example. Oh, he gaslit me, and the list goes on, or she's an avoidant and she's just she's never available. They're all the same. Yeah. Sorry, a bit of a rant, but
No.
Yeah.
I want to take a step into the part work again through the lens of what you said, which was, we receive the imprint from our caregivers, who are imperfect and didn't have any of these tools either. They had less than we did. They're imperfect human beings who were also just trying to make it in the world with their own wounds that they carried down. And this is the imprint that you got of what it's meant to be in a relationship.
Right.
You then go and do some work, fix these pieces, and you don't get to see the parts of yourself in your relationship, in your personal experience, until you go into a relationship.
Right.
This is why I think relationship is such a personal
development tool is a tool for personal growth, is because you can't access these parts if you just sit as a Zen monk on a mountain all day meditating. Yes, you can raise your frequency and you can be in love, but you don't get to work on the parts of yourself that come up when you're in a deep partnership where somebody, you go super deep on a journey with them, and the intensity of that relationship will start to bring up your stuff. Yes. And then you're like, oh, fuck, I'm just like my dad. And this parts work piece is recognizing that the one who's just like your dad is 5-year-old Simon who got this imprint.
Yes.
Our work is to recognize what our imprint is, where we got it from, and who is we call it the wounded child inside each of us, and be the responsible parents, mom and dad,
now,
internally,
yes,
so that it can be mirrored outside,
yes.
You know, as within, so without.
Yes.
And so, and this is like what I see sometimes as well in the world, is like our sisters are in their wounded masculines bullying men, you know, they're blaming outside themselves for all of the things that have been done wrong. And I'm not taking any of the energy away
yes.
back from men that have been wounded, acting from a wounded place, for example. There's fucking lots of work to do.
Yes.
And it's all about just working on ourselves. There's nothing else that the world needs from me except the best version of me. And that's on me. I have my own stories of wounding and trauma and abuse and, you know, collective shame and, you know, religious conditioning, indoctrination, all that stuff. And as a mature adult, it's my responsibility to say what I really want from my life, this precious life that I have, what I want from my relationships, and how am I going to show up. And the best place that I can see that I have work to do is when I'm triggered.
Yes.
Where do you get the most triggered? In your relationships. It's a feature, not a bug. Everyone goes into a relationship sold on the Disney movie that we're going to be happily ever after, and then 2 months, 6 months, 2 years in, everything's exploding. You're like, there's something broken. I'm going to find the next person.
Right.
Only to recognize that, okay, there's a version of me that's 5 years old, that's being my dad, that is seeing the things that was triggered in me. And the work is to hold. My wounded child's name is Charlie. He's the polite boy, the people pleaser, who, when I was polite and well-behaved as a kid, I received the love of my parents. I got stuff in the world. When I went to my parents' friends' houses, that I could feel their love shining on me. So that became my strategy. That's what I did.
Yes.
But that part doesn't like conflict. That part will bend itself into any shape to make everybody else happy. And that's inauthentic. It's actually a trauma response. People pleasing is a trauma response.
Yeah.
But we live in a world, not to discount the fact that as a tribe, you did need to fit in and synergize with the tribe and make sure that you fit it in, for sure. But you also need to be honest. You can't, just always pretend that everything's okay when it's not, because that's not truth either. And This is the piece that we started with, which is what is genuinely true in this moment. And that's the work to do, to recognize that I should have a difficult conversation with my partner, but I'm not going to, in case she gets upset.
Yeah.
That's my 7-year-old. Yeah. That's not the mature expression of my king saying, you know what, I want to be super current, and I know this might be a bit uncomfortable, but I have to bring it because otherwise I'm not current in my communication with my partner.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I just want to say on that, and actually we all want, I speak for myself, I just want the truth. It starts kind of full circle. So that doesn't mean it's nice to receive that when your partner tells you this is the truth, and yesterday, my partner gave me a great mirror, which you unpacked for me yesterday as well, around this little boy, let's call it my fight, kind of, I sometimes say around 5'7", that just wasn't receiving the nurture and the emotional love and support fully from my mum and father because they didn't have capacity. She did the best she could, as always, that they did. And then, of course, where was I getting it? I was getting it from the attention of boys and girls, and seeking it from boys and girls to give me the, like you just said, the love and the acknowledgement that my body needed to survive, to flourish, to feel loved.
Yes.
Right? And then coming into relationship, or then going on a quest of, looking for love and seeking love, but then at the same time, not knowing how to receive that love, because when it comes in, only knowing it as it maybe being smothering or too much, so shutting myself down in a kind of protection mode and not being able to welcome it in. So, questioning even now, have I even been able to let the love of a woman fully in? And I'm realizing, which is also very, very worthwhile at this point in my life, of just being on my own for the last 18 months, and who knows how long that will continue. But I'm realizing by doing this work that we're doing continued therapy around parts work and really uncovering these parts as you describe them, I'm realizing, wow, as I give them the love that they really need, right? I'm receiving more love. And that love can come at me from you, from wherever, and it's not feeling like it's going to go anywhere. I'm not feeling scared. It's not like I've got to protect it, or, it's just like, I can just welcome it in. And that's making me feel more in self energy, if you will. That's making me feel more whole, which is what we talk about, right? More complete, more whole. And yet I had to go through the pain of the detachment again and repeating this kind of wounded little boy that was scared to stay and scared to stay there and so on. I had to go through that pain again to see it like this. And, and not to justify it, but that's where I'm at with it, And I'm so grateful for the tools and for the wisdom that's out there in our kind of, definitely in our circles, but definitely in our field of consciousness right now. That is really, there's Thomas Hubble, there's Richard Schwartz, there's Peter Levine, there's many talking around, trauma, and of course Gabor Mates. These are some of the mainstream ones, but there's many others talking about all of these pieces, parts, attachment theory, and so on. And I think that with that understanding, we have a really great potential of, healing the actions and behaviors of the past and living from fear, and actually moving into really authentic self-led relationships that are there for real transformation and real change, and that for me is exciting, and everyone that's doing that work, you and everybody else that they're talking about this and sharing it, I think, there's a good seed. There's a good seed. If we keep watering it, there's great potential that the blueprint that we leave behind, because we're the elders of the next generation, right? And the youth that we support are the next elders. Yes. And we all only live 100 years, right? You and I, within 100 years span, this whole civilization as we know it is gone.
Yes.
So I want to leave the seeds of something different.
Right. This is also what we're saying. It's like, if we don't do this work, you pass the wounds that you got from your mom and dad onto the next generation. If you become a parent, or even if you're just a mentor to a young man, you don't have a healthy imprint of what this is, and it becomes our responsibility to do. And so, it was so funny how we got to, while we both do the work we do this morning, maybe you can share your journey and I'll share mine. I'll start with mine.
Yeah, please.
I feel like I'm doing men's work because I had a beautiful expression of a healthy relationship in my mom and dad, and a healthy expression of masculinity from my dad. And a part of me is like, I haven't got that much to do. Like, I'm fucking head and shoulders above some people who are carrying a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse and no father and like all of these potential challenges that they had. And so I'm like, I've got this healthy imprint of masculinity. I feel like it's my gift to bring to the world, combined with the work and integration I've done about relationships and sexuality. I know my mission, I'm on my way. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing men's work. And then you were like, yours is different, right?
We come to the same point from very different places.
Yes.
Yeah, mine's coming from, I guess we can describe it as more of the broken, the broken family unit, no? My father left when I was 9 months old. I only got to meet him, and I couldn't really explain to you fully. I saw him when I was 6 years old, and then we just never saw him again. Of course, my mum had met a new, who became my stepfather. So he kind of was my father anyway, leading up to that. So he kind of filled the shoes of that. But then he left as well. So he left around when I was 12, or maybe a little older, but around that kind of teenage year. And then that was, absent father number 2. And then, my mum never remarried because she kind of went into like, her fantasy of marriage and what the kind of life of, a married, the knight on shining armor, as she said sometimes. She lived in her own fantasy world of this man coming and having that kind of dreamlike scenario, right? Of supporting her and the family and taking care of the children, which never happened. So that kind of crumbled her. And then, you know, she had a few interactions with men, but none of them were very, very healthy role models or examples. And I don't want to say that, you know, I doubt any of them would ever listen to this. I mean, my father's dead now, but I don't want to say that they didn't have some good qualities, right? My stepfather took on 2 children, which were not his. I took on a child, a stepdaughter, Maya, from 1 year old to 8, 7 years. And that actually humbled me in the realization of what he took on, taking on 2 boys, me and my older brother, who, you know, we were kind of, not only not his, we were quite little wild ones, you know. So, you know, he came in with his love and care to the best of it. Like you said earlier, the best of their ability. Wasn't like, thankfully, he wasn't just an abuser, and, you know, he was still doing some nice things with us, but it was that usual misogynistic man shouting at my mum if the dinner wasn't on the table, you know. The woman's place is in the kitchen. You know, women should, you know, be quiet and do what they need to do kind of vibe. And then the escalated arguing was happening, right? And actually, just tell you this small piece, I didn't tell you this morning, but my elder brother, who I recently connected with, he told me quite at the time, a sad, something I didn't know, right? Which is, so he used to put his hands over my ears because of the shouting that was happening in the space. Now, I was too young to know that, right? But then when I was talking to him and I was telling him, like, you know, I was also sorry for our disconnection. We kind of had this estranged relationship the last 10 years and also, like, you know, growing up and so on. And doing this psychological work and following my blueprints, I kind of got a bit more understanding of the domestic violence that I grew up in. And then he voiced it, because I'd never heard his side of the story, because he was 5 years older than me. And then when he told me that, you know, we just started crying, you know, because, it brings emotion now, because it's like, when we do this parts work, I don't remember that boy. I don't remember how I was impacted by that shouting, you know, but I just remember a time when I was around 6 or 7 where my mum had been beaten up, and I mean, I had a vision that she was beaten up with blood on her face in the bath. And when I spoke to her about it, she said she wasn't in the bath, but she was in the bathroom looking in the mirror, and she had blood on her face and she'd been slapped or hit. And, and you just don't remember that. But that imprint was with me for a long time, of just remembering that she'd been beaten up. And when I actually did a mushroom therapy journey on this 18 months ago or so, and with a psychologist, it was also my ex-partner. And during the journey, because it was very intentional, I came to this loop where I was out of control. And in being out of control, as I followed the thread, it took me to that moment where, you know, when your mum is beaten up and you don't know what's happening in the kind of, you know, me now, maybe it was just a shout and it wasn't so big, for example, right? But either way, she still was hit and they were shouting. And as a 6-year-old boy, you don't know who's your caregivers, what's happening. You don't know, you know, who's taking care of you, you know? And that's kind of the thread we worked on. And then we did this kind of healing journey at the end of bringing the family unit together in love with my 3 brothers and my stepfather and my mother, to kind of seal that period, you know, that to, like, you know, to no longer have this kind of assumptions of what it was or wasn't, but just to kind of bring a more peace to that little boy. So that was, that just came up now, of course, because I didn't tell you that this morning. But that piece, and then knowing that it was, again, there's many layers of harshness, but it was just harsh environment, you know. And maybe one other piece to tell you, as I got older and looked back, all the boys I hung out with in this kind of environment, I was realizing there's domestic violence in most of the houses. And you're gonna love this or not, but every one of the friends I hung out with have had an absent father, an absent parent. Two brothers and another good friend had absent mother. And then one, Geordie, me, Pete. Yeah, we all had absent fathers. So, it's like, as I got older and started to reflect on that, I was like, wow. So that was my framework. And that's kind of what you asked me, what led us into the work. So yeah. So that's one of the reasons that, that kind of circling back to like supporting, You've said it as well. I think you say it slightly different, but your greatest wounds are your greatest gifts to give to the world.
Yeah, exactly. Your wounds become your wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your message.
Your message. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Phew. We touched this morning something that I'd like you to speak about, which is your journey. So coming out of that, you don't have an active, healthy masculine role model in your world. And what I think our society is lacking so deeply is healthy initiation that is a threshold for human beings to move from one phase of life to the next.
Yeah.
And one of the masculine initiations that we don't have is from boyhood into manhood. And when there's not a clear, delineated experience that takes a young boy into being a young man, we end up with immature, what do they call them, man children, like
Yes.
boy man or something like that. The part of we see it in our leaders, we see it in our politicians. There's not a healthy expression of masculinity, and often that has to do with the fact that they haven't been through some sort of initiation. And as part of the journey of being a man, we actively seek initiation. And if we don't receive it in a healthy environment, we would have had this when we lived in tribes. So just to give the initiation, a healthy initiation looks like we live in a tribe, you and I are in our 40s or 50s, and we have a group of young men, let's say 11, 12 years old, that are coming into manhood. There would be an active process where they were taken away from the village, out into nature. They would have gone through some sort of initiation where they would have been through some controlled discomfort to go through, maybe having to kill an animal of sorts, having to fend for themselves for a while, maybe some sort of even pain of some description, for them to really recognize that they're not little boys anymore, and it's their responsibility to come back and to stand as a man and find their place in the village. And the initiation is not only for the young man, it's also for the health of the village. And so we've lost that.
Yeah.
And I've been approached by quite a few people to support young men, but I feel like you're holding a piece as well, because what I understood you to go into was, the other thing is, if you don't have it from a healthy environment as a young person, you will probably go into gangs, or you will seek out reckless behavior to get this initiation that is inherently part of our code of maturing.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to share your story of how you found initiation as a young man, not having had healthy initiation, and how that's integrated in what you potentially want to bring to the world, which is maybe also the title of your book, and maybe, jump from there.
So you mean share my kind of pseudo initiations, you mean, from when I was young?
You went through the initiation of finding yourselves surrounded by men who were initiating you at some level, right? Some of them as healthy as they could be, but not healthy.
Yeah,
yes.
not so healthy as what I think you and I are talking about now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but speak to some of those.
Sure.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. I thought I had my bottle, but it's gone. It's all good. Do you have water in there?
Quickly grab it, right?
Yeah, sorry, I got we can keep rolling. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. That's called the water break. Okay. I'm still feeling, thank you for sharing that. I'm still feeling kind of always interesting how I mention some parts of my past, and sometimes it brings emotion, sometimes not, And it's always interesting I guess there's sometimes that piece around me where we go on this, we get whatever we want to say, dealt the cards, we get dealt, and we go on the journey, and we, some of us find our way and some don't, right? And some get extreme violated and violence, and we're seeing at the moment some of the stories in our world is insane by what is going on with the violation and the violence, and it's sometimes so hard to understand that humans would act like that to other humans, right? Yes. Whether it's rape, whether it's child trafficking, whether it's like, and there's, I love you always saying about this responsibility, that we have a responsibility to change that, and on a kind of root level, right? And it's a team effort, right? We're all doing our piece, because really there needs to be some, in my opinion, some healthy no's, in terms of some of the behaviors. And I feel that we can look back at our parents and say, they didn't know how to take care of themselves and they did the best they can, which they did, and we follow our lineage and we see it go back and back and back. But like, we're going through it right now, right? Like, we're giving our kids the mobile phone at 1 year old, and even younger. And then they're becoming addicted to a mobile phone, and we don't know how to deal with that or control that, and they're having tantrums and fits and smashing houses up because they're in, like, they're massive addicted to bloody the chemicals that these this is insane. That's just one little element. So when you talk about parenting and relationship and so on, I feel like there's some real action that has to be taken, to change. And that's not easy in a world of distractions and all these other things. And like you said, no healthy initiations. And some of mine were like, a group of guys taking me to Amsterdam to sleep with a prostitute to lose my virginity, and having 5 men outside, like, supporting me to go in at 16 years old to sleep with a prostitute, because that's the manly thing to do, right? Yep. And I love them for that, because they took me there, it was fun and it was amazing, and they just wanted me to be a man, right? That was the idea of, like, come on, man, it's time, Yes. You're going to sleep with a woman, be a man, right?
Yes.
But that's a pseudo initiation, because it comes with a lot of distortion and a lot of, like, objectification, and then me walking around looking at loads of women and thinking who I'm going to pay for, and then eventually just being ushered into one. And then after that, going on a journey to sleep with 100 women and sleeping with over 55 or more paid women, which I would call now me being a sex worker, because I'm a sexological therapist, and, like, I would call them sex workers on some level, not prostitutes, because prostitutes is a kind of derogatory to them, but at the same time, they're in the world of that, right?
Yes.
And that distortion around pornography and sexuality and misogyny and objectification, I mean, it's deep. One of the biggest industries is porn, right? And the work we're doing and the work I'm doing is supporting men to get off a porn addiction, supporting men to love their body and touch their body in different ways so that they can, that's an initiation, right? Just some men no longer using porn to have to feel something and to be able to touch their body and caress their body without a goal, without anywhere to go, that's an initiation, right? It's like a sexual initiation that we can have for ourselves and with the group field. And then others, where going into jail, and then coming out of jail, and then that kind of experience of, even though it was a short time, that kind of camaraderie that comes, where, men are then like, well done, you didn't grass, you're a man now, you survived jail, you get this kind of notch on the belt kind of thing, right? But again, it's an initiation that's a pseudo initiation. It's not really creating necessarily a transformation out of a kind of, into a more integral, authentic being, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just sharing those couple is just as a kind of, like, some of the pieces that I've experienced, and then getting older and then coming into these, like, different containers that we've been in, and really, being supported to face our shadows and face these darker part of I call it shadow part, because the dark and the light for me are both powerful, right? So the shadow of the dark and the shadow of the light, and having containers and rituals and processes that enable us to see those parts in a more healthy, safe environment, right? That's where I feel real initiation takes place, you know? I will say also, I haven't come across yet too many elders on my path that I've really felt supported and taken under my wing. You know, I've definitely been in a few containers, like, you know, week-long containers where there's an older man leading, you know, and has led some rituals and ways for self-initiation and group initiation. But I also, like you described in the tribe, I haven't, I haven't had any real, I would say real eldership taking care of me. And I feel that that's, well, you already said this, but I feel that's vastly, non-existent.
It's lacking, yeah.
It's lacking, yeah, maybe that's the great word, it's lacking. So I do feel that there's actually a part of me, as I'm getting, coming into my 50th year, feeling that there's a call for that. Like, what does that look like to actually, be that? And I have been that. I do feel I've been that for some younger men,
Yes.
I have some 30-year-old brothers, 33-year-old brothers, and, sometimes 28, 30 that have come through the work I do. And, I've done my best to be as best a role model that I can be for them. And I've definitely had, like Charles Eisenstein, I would say, has been a role model for me, but not as a real, we're not like great friends and we haven't shared loads of time together. There's people that I've read and been inspired by who have been my role models, let's say. But this idea of eldership and tribe is definitely lacking.
What do you think are the components of healthy eldership?
That's a great question. I mean, definitely somebody who can hold the paradox of life and, give a broader perspective and greater awareness of the many nuances that are going on in the field, as opposed to, any of this kind of, this is how it is, this is how it should be, any dogma or, or any hierarchy. There's some of the elders that I've seen have a great peace about them and wisdom and depth that is not performative, and they're not seeking gratification or even acknowledgement of any kind, and they're holding a point to the, to the greater web of life and the lineages that we've all come from. And I don't just mean that, they have to be plugged into a certain, philosophical fixed dogma or something. I just mean like they're holding the responsibility of what it means to be an elder, you know, and really living and breathing that responsibility in a humble way, not in a need to be, as I said, need to be acknowledged like that, And I also think sometimes in the environments that we're in, let's call it the self-development world, or I throw these words around lightly, spiritual circles and so on, and I really throw that word around lightly because, what does that mean to be spiritual or not spiritual? But I often still feel that there's not so many elders, or definitely where I've been. And whenever there is an elder in the space, even if it's a so-called participant, I always want to acknowledge them for showing up, I just had 3 elders on my retreat, and 4, and I really acknowledge them to come to a retreat with me, being maybe 10, 15, 20 years younger, and they're sitting there and allowing me to offer my offerings and receiving them, So I always have a lot of respect that someone who's lived a lot more or, gone through their processes come into the spaces that I offer. So there's just some of the elements.
Coming up for me is that the idea of like a reluctant leadership. You know, the person who really wants to be a leader is not normally a good leader. You know, there's too much desire for them to want to lead and to be in that role. And, you know, there's something in the eldership as well, which is like, it's not an easy job to sit in this place of, sharing your wisdom, being okay with exactly where you are. But I think the piece that really landed for me was the piece that's connected to the wider web. You've let go of the personality and the service that you've done in this body in this lifetime, and how am I really going to serve what's coming after me wider than just my direct lineage? You know, how am I leaving this world a better place? How is this natural world better off? Or what have I left here that's really been significant to the other than human world? Because I think that's a piece that's missing. You know, it's a part of us that sees an ego identification that some people can get old, but an elder has let go of the ego and recognizes that there's more to it than the small self, and that, you know, we're all connected, and at some level my work is to make sure that I leave this place somehow better off, or, you know, have just made an impact in some way that will support not only my direct family, but the greater life web. So a lot of your work is around authenticity, radical honesty, and you've got a program that you offer called Naked, which is really about being in your truth and being the most honest version of yourself. How do you balance that polarity with what's currently showing up in our world with AI, which is maybe not truth, or it's somehow fake? You know, we can make video out of a prompt. And how do you reconcile these seemingly opposite polarities of what you're really called to bring and what's moving in our collective field with AI, and you know, being able to not trust what's on the news, that type of stuff? How do you balance that, and what's allowed for you around this topic?
Well, it's fun. Well, actually, it's kind of going full circle now as we come to a close, because we started on lies, no?
Yeah.
And then actually coming full circle to like, how do we create in this world where the foundation is lies, and now we have so much fake.
Right.
It's almost like we're going through a funny time where everything seems to be amplified.
Yes.
Everything's coming to the surface.
Yeah.
We're seeing it all.
Yes.
And we're kind of getting a HD, you know, we've just seen wars HD live streamed.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know any civilization that's ever had that. I mean, we've got movies, and we know that there's been news showing some kind of little snippets of war and trauma, no?
Yeah.
And now, depending on where you're looking, like that stuff's accessible everywhere.
Yes.
I don't know statistics, but the suicide rate of men is extremely high, right? Just not being able to feel that they have the support.
Right.
And then you've got child, you know, teenagers and youth looking at pornography, and the pornography industry, you know, still soaring. And then you've got kind of a lot of mixed different perspectives about, you know, masculine femininity, the Me Too movement, and then kind of some women over masculizing themselves, and then not thinking they don't need men anymore. So they've got this kind of battle of the sexes is also getting kind of, you know, hyper thrown in our face, no?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's quite intense.
Yes.
So the piece that I'm often invited is just come back here now, come back into community, come back into, you know, the space of sharing circle. And, I mean, the kind of technologies I use are very simple, you know, on all of my work is actually breathe, move, sound, drop into your body, listen, learn to listen. You know, we've got 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Can we start to listen again, or just begin for some of us, and then start to just speak what's going on, you know? You know, and in the sharing circle, which I love about circular work anyway, is like, you know, when you hear the truth, you know the truth. When somebody speaks the truth, it just carves through everything.
Yes.
It's like that old saying, like when you speak from the head, you meet other heads. Speak from the heart, you speak to hearts, you know?
Yes.
And so that idea of listening with the heart, speaking with the heart, being spontaneous, you know, dropping into essence and expressing what's really going on for you, and then giving the tools for emotional expression, which has been so suppressed, you know, and that's not just always anger, but like grief, you know. Like one of the circles I did recently was a grief circle, and just giving people permission to grieve.
Yeah. Our culture doesn't grieve.
No.
Yeah.
And that's vital in my opinion,
Yes.
especially like even in the parts work, again, coming a bit full circle to the parts work, whenever I'm doing this parts work and I'm going in there, what actually has to happen? Many of these parts need to mourn.
Yes.
Because, you know, they didn't get the, you know, the little child didn't get the love it needed, didn't get the connection it needed, didn't get the support it needed, didn't get seen, didn't get loved.
Yes.
So there's like, once I normally unburden a part, there's a mourning that needs to take place.
Yes.
And at the moment, I feel there's like almost like, well, not almost, there's collective mourning.
Yes.
And are we stopping for that? So one of the things I feel, or like, you know, whether you're doing the work you're doing with couples and men as well, really what we're doing is we're saying, can we stop? As you know, I take away mobile phones and computers, so we have a
Yes.
complete digital detox
Yes.
for the period of time that we're normally together. And then just that in itself is like, let me just unplug
Yes.
and come back here and feel. You know?
Yes.
And then actually some of the noise and all the disturbances of the mind can just kind of have a bit of distance and a bit of space, because that's where it's all happening, right? Either the fear of the future or the holding on to the past. It's all happening here,
Right.
in the mind space.
Yes.
So I think really that's it. It's like supporting and giving tools to create more space, to realize we're already whole, we're already here.
Yes.
Nothing needs fixing, nothing needs to be achieved, nothing needs to be obtained. And then when that starts to land in a more embodied way, then the outcome, as you said so beautifully earlier, as within, so without, the only work we have to do is on ourselves. That's the invitation across the board. Because it's not happening by shouting to politicians. It's not happening by shouting to whoever.
Or posting on social media.
Yeah, or
in the
just
comment
say,
section.
yeah, or you know, or just And I get it that people are angry and they want to write. And I'm not saying everyone do their piece, protest, do what you need to do. I don't want to be telling anyone the one way, but really, it's always that flip of the pancake. Ironically, if we all go inside and really face ourselves, maybe we'd have even more rapid impact and change.
Right.
Maybe, yeah, that would be that's what comes up, you know. So I think that the reason why we're recording this today and you're doing what you're doing is that we just want to plant a seed out into the quantum soup of alternative options that, you know, that have genuinely benefited you and I. Yeah.
Some of these technologies are not even that fucking groundbreaking.
No, not
They're
at
the
all.
oldest things we have, you know, breathing, sounding, movement.
Yeah.
The technology of a men's circle is not new. We would have sat in villages with our fathers and our elders, who we spoke about earlier,
Yeah.
and our kids,
Yeah.
and we would have modeled to them what it looks like to talk about what's genuinely happening in
Yeah.
our lives.
Yes.
And we moved into the nuclear families, and then the place that men hang out together is in the boardroom with a very clear agenda about what we speak about and what we definitely don't speak about.
Right.
And then we spend 8 to 10 hours almost every single day in that space.
Right.
And we come home and we feel disconnected from our families, but we haven't practiced this authentic expression of what's genuinely moving for us. And I didn't know that this was what I needed. I grew up in a world where we didn't really speak about our stuff. We were just told to carry on and keep things going. And I think this is the collective challenge that men have right now, is the very medicine that I think a lot of men need is the one thing they're never going to do or never want to do. And that's speak about it.
Yeah.
What happens when you don't speak about it is you think that you are unique. My problems are somehow uniquely special to me only. I'm the only one who's having a problem in my marriage. I'm the only one who's worried about finances. I'm the only one who looks out there and sees the world's fucked up because everybody else seems to be fine. And how do I know? Because they put a smile on their face and we have a beer and talk about sports. Or I see on social media that you went to Mauritius and had an amazing holiday, and that's how I think reality is, and it's not true.
Yeah.
And as you said, when I sit down in a circle and I hear somebody else go, fuck, I'm having a hard time with my wife and I don't know if we're going to make it.
Yeah.
My nervous system suddenly can feel that you are speaking fucking straight truth.
Yeah.
And a part of me goes, oh God.
Yeah.
And that saying in men's work that your work is my work, you know, when you bring that to the circle, that is a massive release off your shoulder just to speak it out. But this has been the piece for me, because the first time I stepped into a men's circle and spoke about my sex addiction, I was nervous as hell. I didn't want to do it. I stepped into the circle and I said, for most of my life, I've just chased women almost like a hungry ghost, continually consuming as much as I possibly could. And as it landed, I looked around the circle and saw nothing except presence
And
and
love.
love from the other men in the circle. Yeah. And as I stepped out of the circle, a part of me was like, what the fuck just happened there? How did it feel like I just picked up such a big rock and left it in that circle? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And while I was still like spinning from just how powerful it had been, just speaking out the one thing I never wanted to speak about, that was the cognitive dissonance for me. It's like, wait, the one thing I never wanted to speak about that wanted to speak about that I chose to speak about,
Yeah.
lifted so much. While I was still trying to reconcile that, like 3 or 4 other men came up to me and said, bro, thank you so much for what you've shared. It's moved me too.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful example.
And that's the moment I knew that I'm like, this is my piece to bring. This is to find spaces to be able to have men just share what the fuck is going on, because we share these challenges.
Yeah.
And the suicide rate in men, it's like I can see the answer.
Yeah.
Can we just sit together and
Yeah.
speak about it, you know? And so many people are going through this journey of like, oh my God, I didn't realize Joe down the road, he seemed fine, now he's fucking gone, he took his life.
Right.
How did we not know?
Yeah.
Because we've all been told to just put a smile on our face and sort it out on your own, bro. No one cares about your stuff.
Yeah.
And then you live with that and you think that you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, and all it requires is a safe space to sit and to be able to say, this is what's up for me. And sometimes you don't even have to say it, you just have to hear somebody else say it.
Right.
And there's medicine in that. And so, yeah, this is the piece, you know, with all the fake out there, sit around a fire with men that you love and trust, put the beers and the sport down,
Yeah.
and just use a framework to be able to express authentically in a sacred way what's genuinely moving in your life, and just see what happens, because it's been so liberating for me. And you know, the work that you're doing as well is the unlock, and it's not new. We've had this technology for years, and that's why we did it. And in fact, when we lived in tribes, if you weren't honest about what was happening, our whole family and tribe was at risk.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day and you don't bring it, we can't depend on you. So, yeah, this is, I think, the piece that's going to be probably our way through, is coming back to what we can really see and experience with our senses. Because you can't trust anything you see online or hear. You can take my voice and make me say anything.
Yeah, I mean the replication that even now they can take me and you speaking of all the videos we've recorded online. They could take them, put them in a system, create our voice, even create a replication of our thing and put content out there, and people are going to think that's me and you. I'm watching content on there that it's like this, not the person.
Adapted different words.
Yeah,
so
it's really interesting that we're moving through as more and more comes to the surface. We're moving through this massive need for healthy discernment, which is also the 5th agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz, or from his son, which was the 4 agreements, you know, be impeccable to your word, and, you know, no assumptions, don't take things personally, do the best you can. The 5th one is about healthy discernment, right?
Yes.
And that was really important, that we have healthy discernment right now. And then thank you so much for your emotion and the simplicity of what you were sharing, but the simplicity and the profundity of actually how difficult it is, but how simple it is once it's done, that, like you said, the mind can't work it out.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to echo that and honor that piece that you're saying, because just having that little safety space in order to have the courage to say what we have been holding and has built up in the mind as such a big weight and a big thing. Once it's out, there's not only great relief, but there's also a ripple effect of relief for everyone else.
Yes.
And then if we think about ourselves, even rather than saying, oh, we used to be tribes and we can't do it, we're still tribes. We're just a shitload more beings. And if we continue to do that work, it ripples out for the whole. So, you know, that's why I feel the simplicity of, as you said, it's almost, it's not revolutionary. It's, you know, sitting in a circle, but there is a certain nuance to how we do it. You know, some people sit in a circle and it can just be surface level, right?
Yes.
And they still just talk about some surface stuff and nobody really drops in. If you want vulnerability, you have to be vulnerable. If you want truth, you got to bring the truth. And that's what you did in that instance.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And then of course, many others felt it because you brought it.
Right.
So, you know, you can sit in a circle and you can bypass,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I don't have to tell you this, the parts are the protector parts are very cunning.
Yes.
They do whatever they need to do to keep the system safe.
Yes.
So if you can speak to them and let them know there's somebody else in the driving seat right now, and I'm willing to go into this space, and you're safe, and I've got you, and you're not a threat, and there's no fear right here, right now, and it's time for us to unburden you, because ultimately so much of the conflict is through the burdens that we're carrying, and we don't need to carry them. But we need to have each other. That old saying, no, together everybody achieves more, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the other saying? If you go alone.
If you want to
go alone, go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together.
Right.
Like these little analogies, they haven't stayed in our consciousness for so long because they're just anecdotal. They're real,
Yes.
lived truths.
Yeah.
So we need each other, and that's what I feel this is all about. It's about brotherhood, it's about sisterhood, it's about community, and then it's about like helping each other. Like I know we're finishing now, but just this whole thing of we live in apartments. I always find this fascinating. Apartments. We're apart from each other. We live next to each other. We live in blocks, and we're all buying the same piece of whatever resource. We've all got a lawnmower in the house. Everyone's got a lawnmower in a row of 60, 70 houses that all cut their grass once a year.
Yes.
When you could just have 4 lawnmowers for the whole 50 houses, and we could meet up in the summer and go, hey dude, how's it doing? Should we cut grass together?
Yes.
Or like, hey, can I borrow the lawnmower?
Yes.
Like little silly things that just seems like we've gone so disconnected from that sense of interconnection. And I don't even want to say that it's right or wrong. It is what it is. Here we are. It's all parts. It's all parts gone wild. And the more that we bring those parts back into wholeness, definitely I feel that there can be more cohesion. I don't want to just get into a utopic dream, because I have them. I'm a Piscean of like, the utopia. I think heaven is here right now. But if you're living in fear, and you're living in separation, and you're living in angst, and you're living in that everyone's against you, then you're going to do what all those protectors do. They think the system's collapsing, therefore I'm going to protect. And in order to protect, I'm going to create violence.
Yes.
And that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
When you realize there's no violence and nobody's out to get you, your system relaxes and you see the beauty of life.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Yes.
So, that's the kind of flip of the pancake.
Yes.
And that's how we're living.
Yeah.
So it's happening. And of course, we're not bypassing. I don't see you bypassing. I don't think you're not seeing the wars and not seeing the stuff going on and not, and just avoiding it and going all love and light. I don't get that from you. I get that you're seeing it all, looking at the wide picture and going, this is my offering and this is where I'm putting my focus as a contribution to what is possible.
Yeah, man.
I know we can keep going.
Thank you for bringing the piece around making sure that the circle is well held, because I think, it was important to underline that, because there is a possibility to sit in circle and just have it be surface level, and that doesn't get anywhere, you know, and the protectors are going to do that. They don't want to drop in and go deep because they're not used to that. So, thank you for bringing that. And there's, join a circle that's properly held, you know, through organizations that are doing this work properly. And the type of containers that I know you hold because it's so important to you.
Yeah. Well, we condensed about an hour and a bit from 24 hours, so I think we did we did the best we could.
What's in a sentence, what's your mission, bro? What are you bringing to the world? Like, we touched this outside last night, and I think
I think the only mission is love, and I know that might sound cliched, but the only mission for me is to really live as love. And like every outcome from all these different events that I hold, from all the different pieces that I bring together, is that like life is a gift. Life is a great gift. It's precious. And when I look in your eyes, I just see the wonder and the mystery, right? When I feel your emotion, I feel, when I feel alive. And to just be alive as love, that's really, that's all I want to offer. And that's all, I grieve. The last few years have been grieving, and that grieving has cracked me open to more love, And so every kind of route, and it sounds cliche sometimes. I know the Greeks have got 6 ways of loving, and it's all this thing. It can be a bit cheesy, like it's just love and light. It's not even about that. It's about when you dissolve your identification to who you think you are as a separate being, there's just this vast, indescribable experience that the only word that actually kind of gives it a kind of example is love for me, you know.
Yeah.
You can give it something else, call it awe, call it wonder, call it, you know, mystery, God, you know, whatever you want to, but that is really, you know, the piece for me. It's like, it's love. And, you know, and this last 24 hours with you has just been a sharing of love. You know, we only met each other online over the years. We've seen each other, we come together, we share, we show up, we share these precious moments, and it's just love.
Thank you, my brother. Yeah, thank you for the light that you are and the work that you do and for the energy that you bring to the world. I know you've touched so many people, and I'm super grateful for how I see you showing up and the magic that you bring. You're an inspiration, bro, so thank you.
Yeah, likewise. May we continue a little more. May we play on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for at last being on the couch with you, having potentially planned it a few years ago, and doing it. We said it would happen in a divine moment, and it's happened in the most beautiful divine moment, because we've really got to be with each other. And that for me that's like to come together like that in conversation. You know, yeah, we can do it online, but this has been, you know, triple fold.
Absolutely, bro.
So thank you.
Till next time.
Till next time.